welcome to my current favorites for about the first month and a half of the year. I have never done a video like this in the terms of favorites or even talking, so I thought I'd start with this as it's a pretty common video on YouTube. So today I'm mostly more going to talk about cultural things like books, articles, movies that I've watched or read since the beginning of the year and that had made its mark on me. Stay tuned. Okay, so I'm first going to start with reading, and so that, for me at least, will include articles, but also books too, of course. And I think the thing that most influenced me this past month and a half was the article I Don't Want to Be the Strong Female Lead by Brit Marling, and this was in the New York Times. And so if you don't know Brit Marling, she is the main actress, but also I know she's the writer, or co-writer, but I'm not sure if she's also a producer or something else like that for the OA, and also for Another, and a few other projects too that she's worked with her partner with. And so basically in this article it talks about how women, specifically in Hollywood, are approached and seen in movies, and how of course there's the ones that are objectified and, well, very much known as not being a good influence for women, but also the ones that are supposed to be strong and fierce still have these weird sexist things about them that just are basically the same as the mother or the girlfriend, and they're never the main object. Whereas, of course, with the strong female lead, she is, but she's still being objectified. Marling talks about how she wants to take those types of roles, not use them. And so she's mentioned how she's trying to create a career that has a more of a larger voice for women. And she also brings up a lot of authors who influenced her. And so quite a few of them were like Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler. So it really inspired me to want to read more feminist writers and insights that they have. So being in France, it's of course a little bit harder to find English novels in the library. So I went with Passion Simple by Ernaux, who's a feminist writer here in France. I believe she's still alive. Yeah, she's still alive. And so this is about 60 pages. And it's, of course, I think they're different from the type of novels that she was talking about, but it's not even really a novel, it's a short story, I guess. This is very interesting because it talks about a woman who's in love with somebody and her whole life revolves around that person. She talks about the man that she's in love with in a way that you kind of never see in novels where the man isn't the main protagonist. It's interesting to see women love men and talk about it in kind of the way that women are described, even though it's still very much through a feminine lens. So next I want to talk about YouTube, and I watch quite a few videos on YouTube. I really loved this past month Contrapoints Cancelling, which I believe came out at the beginning of the year, and it was amazing. I mean, her production value was always really interesting, but this one was especially interesting because it's about cancel culture and her own experience with it, but then she's also talking about Charles, James, and Tati and their YouTube drama, but on a larger scale and maybe slightly more important scale than two people. It's also about Contrapoints Natalie. She has to deal with being transgender, having a voice, but not having the perfect voice that transgender Twitter wants her to have. In the same vein as Natalie wins Contrapoints, I also really liked Lindsay Ellis's videos for the financial diet during the month of January. She did a video each week, I believe, and it was basically like looking at culture and money in the lens of media, so with TV shows and films. And it was just interesting. I love videos like that are very short but talk about something media related, because it reminds me of my university courses. And I've become obsessed with thrift hauls and watching videos where people go to thrift stores and buy things, and it's very inspiring because you kind of forget that there's just a treasure trove of things in these larger stores where the prices are really cheap. So somebody who's been doing that really well, or who I've recently discovered, who I found has been really doing it well and who's been doing videos like this for years, is Brit Jones style. But there's a lot of other YouTubers who do the same thing, so it's all better to find. And then lastly, for a French recommendation, I really like the YouTuber Clarinette. Actually, her bilan culturel is what kind of inspired me to do this type of video, I mean, because her insight's really interesting. I definitely recommend her videos wholeheartedly. Next, I want to talk about TV shows briefly. I am a little sad because at the beginning of the year has been the end of quite a few TV shows. One I finished, the other one I think I am just not ready to finish, so I haven't started watching it yet. The last season, the last half of the season. And the first one that I did finish, which was The Good Place, and I love that show. I love the way that they talk about philosophy and how it's a very positive show, but it's so funny, and the jokes that they make, and it's just a very intelligent show. And so I'm very sad to see it go. The ending felt like a little too perfect in some ways, but I mean, it's the end of a show. It's exactly, I think, in some ways what people wanted, so I mean, can't really complain. And then the second one was BoJack Horseman, which I love that show. I love the humor in it. I love the characters in it. I love just the cartoons itself too. But I can't bring myself to watch it because it's just, as funny as it is, it's also a very depressing show. So I feel like I need to be in the correct mood to actually watch it. And the last section, which is potentially the largest section, is for movies. I try to watch a lot of movies. I have a Letterboxd if you're interested in seeing all the movies that I see, but I just wanted to talk about a few today. First one being Swallow by Carlo Mirabella-Davis, and this came out in 2019, but it came out here in France this year, and I think it will be out in the US later this year. And this was a very uncomfortable film, but in a very interesting way. Like, I guess you would call it horror because of that, but it isn't horror. It's very dramatic and horrific, but not in a horror type of way. But so basically, not to give too much away, it's about a newlywed couple in like the suburbs of New York near Hudson Valley that are very 1950s in a way. So I had to change my memory card, so that's why there might be a different frame. Anyway, back to Swallow. It's about the husband who's always working and the wife who's staying at home. They're actually preparing for a baby. She's pregnant with the baby as the movie goes. And she starts to feel like she's losing control of her life, so she starts to swallow objects. I don't want to give away anything more. The movie is just, the story is really interesting and horrific, as I mentioned. But it's also the style and the shots and the colors used. And the costume design and even the set design is very reminiscent of the 1950s, even though it's supposed to be present day. But for instance, the main actress, whose name I'm forgetting, she has a very 1950s style, which is kind of weird because that's not really how people dress today, but it fits perfectly for her role, and it's very feminine. Submissive, if that makes sense. It's very ladylike and proper, which kind of brings this whole facade that maybe things are not as they seem. So the second movie that I want to talk about is Tenebre, or I'm not entirely sure how to say it in Italian, but it's by Dario Argento. It's from 1982, and it's, as far as I understand, one of his most famous films. And I am a huge Argento fan. I love his movies. They're very weird and campy and There's a really good plot to it, but it's all about the style. And I would say that's true for this movie. I feel like there's a little bit more of plot to it than some of his other movies, but it still doesn't really make sense in a lot of ways, and you can tell like it's very much about what's happening on screen. The colors aren't as vivid as some of his other films like Suspiria or Deep Red, but it's still so good. It's still very sexist, which is kind of annoying, but I guess that's Italian culture coming out from the 1970s and 80s, but I love his films, and I'm not even that much of a horror fan, which might be kind of weird to say since I've just talked about 2 horror films, but his films in this movie are so good. I also wanted to talk about Studio Ghibli, which I think besides the US, Canada, and I want to say one other country, they're all now available on Netflix. Well, not all of them. They're slowly coming out, but the full catalog, I believe, is supposed to come out this spring on Netflix. So it's been so nice to rewatch so far some of the films that have come out, like Kiki's Delivery Service, which was a childhood favorite of mine, so it's really cool to watch that. I've also seen Porco Rosso for the first time this month, which I can kind of see why people like it, but I kind of am more of the Spirited Away group, and this one just didn't do it for me. I thought the whole relationship, some of the relationships were really weird, and there was a very weird vibe to it. So that has been fun to go down memory lane with Studio Ghibli and Netflix. Never thought I'd say that. But actually this weekend I saw 1917 by Sam Mendes, and that came out last year. And I really loved parts of it. Like the set design was so intricate and so many details were put into every single shot by way of the set design, and the lighting was really cool, especially in one scene that took place in a village at night. For me, it kind of felt like a movie that didn't need to be told. I mean, technically it's amazing, but the plot and therefore the point of it was, it kind of felt like any other World War I or World War II movies, so I don't entirely understand why it needed to be made, but I definitely wholeheartedly appreciate the technical aspects of it. It isn't entirely true actually, because I thought the one shot actually kind of took away from the film at some points, especially since then it kind of relied on the music a little bit too much to create the tension, and the music could be really cheesy and over the top at times where it just felt a little bit too much. But I still appreciated the movie and really appreciated aspects of the film. And so the last film that I want to talk about today is The Two Popes by Fernando Meirelles, and that came out on Netflix in 2019. And this kind of just goes back to the Marling part about telling a story, which is just a little bit different. Unlike 1917, of course, the popes are very popular and very well known, and this was a huge story when it came out, but to kind of get the human aspect of it and the comedy in between the two popes, the two actors, was just brilliant. It's a very simple film in a way, but also not, because it's so grandiose, because it's the Catholic Church, the most important part of the Catholic Church. Yeah, I really appreciated its simplicity and how it told a story about a friendship, but also about progress and within the church, and about always putting the needs of others first, and how that's important, well, for a church, but also when you're the Pope. But yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think I'll be doing more sit-down videos soon. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this and have a good rest of your day.